Good evening, fellow humans. How are we? Nick again, and we are doing week 4 reflection. Got it right this time. So, this week we talked about some things about how, the Renaissance was brought on after the long-standing medieval period, consequently from the Black Death in the 1350s that, really changed the way that society functioned. And my hands down. That was last time. It really changed the way that society functioned as a whole and really influenced the way that people thought in a society and as a society. And moving forward, we can really pinpoint our modern day individualism and modern day, societal structure to a lot. We can really point it back to the events of the Black Death and the emergence of the Renaissance. So speaking of Renaissance, it kind of brought on to what we know as today as, modern day individualism, personal expression, self-pride, things of that nature. And, so that was, a general, what we were talking about this week theme wise. And then some of the things we talked about this week were obviously we talked about Hamlet, really good Shakespearean play. Shakespeare, as we know, born in the Renaissance, after the medieval period, after the Black Plague. And he's really one of the all-time greatest playwrights from the modern era. So a lot of his works have really great influence on what we do today. So speaking of Hamlet, I really, some things that stuck out to me theme-wise about Hamlet were how, some of the themes that we arrived on really poked at the ideas of emotional regulation and, personal rebellion against a society that is out of order or in a chaotic state of mind. In modern day society, we often find ourselves, either, going against the grain of the pack, or, going against the grain of a society as a whole, because society can be chaotic sometimes. So it really spoke to me how, it was a tale of emotional regulation on Hamlet's part. About a lot of his actions were influenced by his his grasp on his emotions, and how his emotions really affected how he reasoned and how he moved forward in the actions, that followed in the play, about how he decided he was going to plot against Claudius, his uncle, and how, how the cards fell in that play, and how things panned out in that tragedy. So that really stuck out to me, about how emotional regulation was a really large theme, and that really plays a pretty big thing in my life and a lot of modern day people's lives, about how do we battle with the emotions on the inside when sometimes we don't know how to express those emotions to others around us. And if we do express those emotions to others around us, what if they are not perceived in the way that we really feel? And so a lot of times we feel alone in feeling our emotions. But it was a really eye-opening thing to see that, everybody battles with these emotions about hard decisions in their lives. And if you feel, if you felt betrayed in your life and things, that, though Hamlet did make some emotional decisions, and some of his decisions weren't the greatest, it really played a large, part of my reflection in thinking that, wow, don't let my emotions overrule my reason. And that kind of gets me to Stoicism. So we kind of really looked at this week, really, if we look at the medieval period versus the Renaissance period, it really looks, it mirrors the comparison between the Judeo-Christian values, or set of values, and the Greco-Roman set of values, where in Judeo-Christian set of values, you're taught to, obey God, obey the word of the Bible, obey the, don't be out of line too much. Whereas the Greco-Roman series of beliefs, kind of strives towards a more idea of individualism and not personal gain, but individualism and stoicism and rationale and things that are more grounded in logic and reason instead of like a prescribed set of things to do and prescribed set of actions to follow. It tells people to kind of more think on your own and act on what you feel is right on the inside rather than what your God says should be right, And so it really sticks out to me in, connecting it back to Hamlet, how Hamlet was often, faced with personal decisions and things like that, and how that through Shakespeare's writing, that modern influence of the Greco-Roman culture really stuck out to me in Hamlet's actions and Hamlet's how that whole Hamlet, his character, was written as a whole. And speaking on that, it really was, thinking back on it, I was really thinking about how the individualism and the personal thinking and the striving for personal perfection that was brought on in the Renaissance was how it really plays a large part in the way we function today as a modern society. It really got me thinking about how would we function today if the Renaissance were to not happen, if the Black Death would have not shifted the way in which society viewed itself and the way society functioned as a whole. Where would we be? And I was really wondering how, like, the medieval, some of the medieval values about, like, the warrior code and how they would have played out in modern society. It really got me thinking, and it really, it really broadened my point of view in that, it really made me think, wow, if like certain events didn't happen in the past, then we could have a completely different society today. And that was really a really interesting point to think about. And is that all the points I wrote down? Oh, and speaking about modern day individualism and things, and how playwriting and literature at the time in Shakespeare's time has really influenced today's stuff, because, like, for instance, we were talking about some of the sonnets. We were talking about some of the the Italian sonnets versus the English sonnets, and how their structure was how their structure was composed around a turn in the sonnet, and how oftentimes the first part of the sonnet proposed a question, and the second part of the sonnet, I'm getting really long. Okay. But yeah, the Facebook sonnet and stuff, how it really connected to today, and how modern emotions and modern phenomenon are really playing into the old school structure. But okay, I'm really running out of time. Okay. So that is week 4 reflection. See y'all next time. Peace.